I am Shantae, and I want to welcome you to another episode of Next Level Conversations, presented by the Win-Win Women Network and Fight Girl Productions. Our mission is to provide you with empowering conversations that uplift, inspire, and encourage you on your path forward. I hope that this episode will be a source of information and inspiration, helping you gain new insights, overcome past traumas, and transform your life. Let's get into it. Bishop Noel Jones is one of my favorite preachers. And one of the things that he says often is that God creates situations so that we can have a revelation. And sometimes those revelations come at what it seems is a hard cost because it requires change. I am Shantae, the host of Next Level Conversations, where we are having conversations to uplift, inspire, and encourage you on your journey forward. Tonight, we're going to be talking about evolving through change. And I am excited about my dear friend who is joining us on tonight. Staci Wright is the founder of Heart Profit. And she is joining us to talk about her event that sparked the change in her life that has now sparked a global movement that she is on to help change the heart of people and the heart of business. So I want you to join me tonight as I welcome my darling, Miss Staci Wright. How are you, honey?
I'm so good. I'm so excited to be here. We've been planning this for a while, and I couldn't wait.
I know, and I'm so appreciative of you for being here on tonight. You flew all the way in. You flew in directly, came here directly from California, and so I'm just so happy to have you on tonight. And you look gorgeous.
I'm glad I made it. There were some storms going on this morning, and so we had to circle around for about an hour before we could come in, but we did make it finally.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I'm waiting on all of this stuff to just completely just go all the way out in the air because baby, my sinuses are playing with me.
Yep, I hear you. Me too.
So let's get into it before we fully start talking and jump into our conversation on tonight, which we're just having a conversation. We're just gonna let God move us and take us where He wants to take us. But will you tell our audience, just kind of tell our audience a little bit about your background and what it is that you're doing? Just kind of give us a little bit of background about yourself.
Sure. I'm an entrepreneur. I've actually had 6 businesses over the last 20 years. In this current season of life that I'm in, I'm really all about social impact business. I've done a lot of volunteerism for charities, and what I've noticed over the last decade is that the needs in the community are rising at a faster rate than we can keep up with them. And so as our charities are not able to keep up with the volume of need that people have, I started looking at creative solutions. Businesses solve problems with power and sustainability. So as an entrepreneur, I'm looking at how can we solve these social problems that we're having. More and more people needing food, more and more people needing housing, more and more people needing mental health services. And so one of the ideas that I had was that, environment impacts our mental health in a big way. And so where do we spend most of our time all week?
At work.
At work, right? So if we change our work environments to environments that include connection and compassion and care and fulfillment for a human, it actually could change the trajectory of the mental health crisis that we're facing. So I started with that idea and started a new business where we manufacture products, hire single moms. We have daycare on site. We take them through a personal development pathway. And so that was how I started. But then what I started noticing was that bringing compassion to the workplace is different. It's not what we've done in the past. I was raised on command and control, and that's how you got stuff done in the working world. And then all of a sudden I started doing compassionate business and performance started to fall. And I started noticing my other business friends that own businesses having the same problem. They're like, we want to be compassionate in business, but when we do, it seems like our employees become entitled or we lose performance. Things just don't work as well when we bring compassion. And I thought, well, there's got to be a way to marry the two.
Yeah.
And so that's where Heart Profit was born. Heart Profit is a global movement where we bring a heavy-duty curriculum to business leaders that says, hey, you can marry compassion, connection, and care and high performance. And actually, with compassion, connection, and care and the right foundation, your performance gets a lot more than you would have before. So that's what Heart Profit is, and that's the projects that I'm working on currently.
And look at you, just doing it, just doing it. I love it. I love it. I love it. And you're in the middle of creating a massive change.
Yes.
And a movement that creates change, changing the way that we do everything in life. But at the same time, and at the same time, not even but at the same time, our own lives are constantly filled with massive change and
Yes.
impact. So I want to, I kind of want to walk through how you got into how you moved and navigated into Heart Profit, what your life looked like before, and the transformation and the work that you yourself had to do, and the changes in your own life that got you to this place when you made the change from corporate CEO to more compassionate care connection CEO.
Okay, that's a big story.
Okay, well, we got to condense it, but that's okay. That's okay. So, I mean, you tell me where it starts.
Well, I think it started for me like around 35, 36, 37, in that age range, when I started feeling like there was more that I was supposed to be doing. It was almost like an alarm clock went off in my ecological system. I was like, okay, now there's something more I'm supposed to be doing, but I don't know what it is. So I really started getting into my spiritual path at that time. And I started really digging into that and prayer and meditation and all of those things. And about 30, 38, 39, things started getting real wobbly in my life. Things started getting a little crazy. We had at that point, I was married at the time, had 2 kids, and we had a business, a $5 million business. And so things were moving along really well. And then all of a sudden we got hit with a lawsuit. And it was a lawsuit that over the next decade, I had no idea at the time, but over the next decade would completely abolish the life that I had known.
Really?
Yes, yes. And
You're
so
talking about change out of nowhere.
yes, yes. It was like God said, yes, it is time for you to do something else, and we're gonna shake it up and move you into a whole new space. And I didn't realize that's what was happening at the time. It felt very scary to me. It felt very uncomfortable. And there was a whole lot of angst and anxiety and fear and all of those things going on during this turbulent time of my life. And it wasn't until years later that now I can look back and see, okay, things have to be destroyed so new things can come. And that's very relevant to where we're at in life. And you're talking about the change that we're having. Like the humanity is going through an evolution that is monumental.
Yeah.
And so all of the old things are falling apart when we come to politics and in the education system and our economic system and all of these things.
Even
and structures.
our households, and
Yes.
our mental stability, everything that
Yes.
once was so certain
Yes.
has now started to crumble. And one of the things that I really want to talk about tonight, like you just talked about, your life was, you had a foundation, you had a good foundation, and then it started to crumble, and how you moved and how you evolved through that change.
Yes.
But I want to back just for a second. Now, when you hit about 35 and you started feeling that stir, because I think you know what, I'm going to tell you that I think I started feeling it too around about that age. I'm not that old, so but I think I started feeling it too around about that age. And so I have always been in church. Were you always raised? Were you raised in church? Did you always have a spiritual connection, a walk with God?
No, I was raised in church. My dad was a Southern Baptist preacher.
Oh, really?
Yes. And I turned away from religion. Religion really did me, it was like not a good situation. It was a lot of fear and judgment. And I couldn't reconcile that God is loving, yet God will send people to hell for not believing in Jesus. So I couldn't reconcile that whole thing. So I went away from that. But I did come back to the spiritual foundation at that time. I knew there was more. I knew there was a higher intelligence. I knew there was a God. And so I just started going direct. Like I didn't go to a church, I didn't go to a faith, I didn't go to a religion. I went direct. Like I went, like got on my knees and I'm like, okay, let's talk and guide me in this path.
Really,
Yes.
really. I've been listening to this guy by the name of Miles Monroe, and one of the things that he said was that at our core, we're always seeking something that we knew, even though we don't even know that we knew, but we're always in search of
Yes.
that something.
Yes.
And so your internal man was seeking that thing. I absolutely love it.
Yes.
And so you begin to, your prayer life begin, your
Yes.
questions in your prayer life and the requests begin to change.
Yes.
And we were talking about this off air about when you start asking God, there's something more. There has to be more. God, lead me more. But you never give thought that more and the revelation of that more is going to be so earth shattering.
Yes, no, exactly. Exactly. I'm like, yes, let's go. I'm ready. Let's go to the next level. Let's do the next thing. Let's do something really big and powerful in the world. Yes, I'm here. I'm here for it. Let's go. Little did I know that it involved a complete come apart of what I knew, everything I knew, and then put on a whole new foundation, a whole new level to rebuild with.
It's that rebuilding period. How did you start to, when your crisis first hit, or when your situation first hit, and I think you said it started with, did it start with the lawsuit?
Yes.
How did you, when that rug is pretty much pulled from under you in this ship? I'm in the legal profession, so
Yeah.
I know what I know what a lawsuit, especially this is your first time ever being sued.
Well, yeah, to that level. Yes. Yes.
Believe me, I know what happens when people get hit with these massive lawsuits, and it literally shifts your entire foundation. Your entire foundation.
Yes.
How did you navigate that? How did you navigate that initial shock of shift? That initial shift.
I would say probably not well at first. I had a lot of fear and a lot of anxiety, a lot of not knowing what's happening and doubt and all of those things. But I had developed a meditation practice by that time. So every morning I was meditating and I would get that moment of respite, that moment of peace where I would know, okay, it's going to be okay. I just have to get through this. And so I was getting at that point instructions, very basic instructions of what to do each, like this day do this or do this. So I had like one foot in front of the other. Like I knew I was supposed to go out and be of service. That was one of the things I was told, and meet people and not worry about anything else. And so it was like, then I had to worry about how do I regulate my nervous system, because my nervous system is completely off the charts with anxiety and all of that. So I really had to start investigating, how do I calm my human self down? Because my higher self or my spiritual self or that part of me felt peace, but my human body did not. Like it was still in the throes of the chaos.
And I think people don't understand that you actually can exist
Yes.
in those two states at the same time.
At the same time, yes, yes. It's absolutely.
And it doesn't mean that you don't have faith. It's just the natural part of you, and God gets that. Oh,
yes.
Don't. Okay, I'm gonna get real excited. God actually gets that, and He understands that. You're at peace on one end, but God, I'm still kind of off kilter because my body is still feeling this anxiety.
Right. We're still in this human form on this human planet that is a very hard place to be. And we've got to figure out how to navigate that. And so that's when I learned really walking out in nature for me calmed me down. So there were days that I would go 2 and 3 times walking out in nature just to calm my nervous system. And then by the end of the walk, I was like, okay, my body and my mind is at peace and it's good. And then I'd go back in the world and things would get stirred up again. Then I'd have to go back out. So I learned certain things that I would do proactively that would set up my body to be a little bit more resilient, that would set up my body to be a little bit more able to cope with the big changes that were happening. Does that make sense?
No, that makes that, and it's so it's so interesting because we've never talked about that. But it's so interesting because I honestly I think I did some of the exact same things.
Yeah.
The spirit part of me, the soul part of me was completely at peace
Yeah.
when I started seeking God for God. I, there's something more, and then boom, my husband walks in and says, I don't want to be married
Right.
anymore. And so that shifted life for me. And so on the one end, and while I'm completely at peace, the physical part of me
Mhm.
needed some type of was still in flux. And so I
Yes.
started working out.
Yeah.
I started
It's a
working
great
out.
thing to
And
do.
yeah,
Yes.
and you don't realize the advantages that all of these things
Yeah.
and that are free.
Yes.
These
Yes.
and these natural things that God has set up because he's
Mhm.
always covering us. He's always making us prepared and he already has the thing already for us.
Yes.
But he already has something set up, these natural things that we can do
Mhm.
every day.
Yes.
Going and taking I started walking too because
Yeah.
I didn't walk, but
Yeah.
working out and moving and
Mhm.
exercising and stuff, I agree with you. It helped calm the mind and
Mhm.
calm the body.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What is something I know you picked up a workout habit, but did you pick up any sayings or anything that
Yeah.
you started having to tell yourself often during this time period?
Yes, yes. It was very important for me. And I found a mantra or I call it an intention.
Oh,
So I
okay.
set like one intention and that pretty much covered what what was important for me. And it was to use my skill set to make a positive impact in the world with power and sustainability. That
Oh,
was really
okay.
what I wanted at the core of who I was. Now, sometimes my human part of me would run off and figure out, oh, I could do it this way. And I would go running that way and fall flat on my face, right? And
Mm.
God would be like, no, we're going to do it this way. And so I had to go back to that saying over and over and over and over so that I didn't let my mind take off with ways to get that done. Because I had to start doing it his way instead of my way,
Uh-huh.
right? Because
Hmm.
where we're going is not anywhere we've been. So it's not like my human mind could understand where we're going to begin with. So I say that to say, um, backtrack to what I was saying before. It was,
Hmm.
um, I could totally lost my train of thought on that one.
That tends to happen when you hit a certain
It was
age.
something good. It was good.
It'll come back. Don't even worry about it
Yeah.
because believe me, the person who it happens to all the time is me. That's so funny. Let me ask you this, and and if you experience this like I did, so I'm in this change. We're in this change. God
Yeah.
has come in and has rocked our world
Yes.
because He's created again this. He's created this situation so that He can give us this
Yes.
revelation of self. And I want to talk about the revelation of yourself that you begin to learn as you're going through this transformation. And but we're in this situation and we're going through it. And I remember always saying to God, okay, God, now this is big enough. Don't hit me with nothing else, please. And without fail, it seemed like something else would hit in the midst of it.
You know what I did? Oh my gosh. It was like that for me too. It was like constant, constant. But then what I started realizing is that every time there was a hit, I moved up another level.
That's why you're next level, baby.
Yeah, that's right. And so finally, what I started saying was, okay, you know what? I'm already down. Just bring it all. Like, let's just go through
Oh,
it right now. Bring it. Let's go. And so I would just like, every time something would come, I'd be like, okay, it's going to make me stronger. It's going to
yeah.
make me better. And I would lean into it instead of trying to
Mm,
avoid it. And then I
mm.
just got to it. It was like, okay, let's just do it all while we're down so that we're not getting up and then getting knocked down again. I'm not sure that that's really how it works, but
But I
the
think you
lean in.
begin to take on that mentality.
Yes.
You understand? Because you have to learn how to navigate change. We were talking about that, and I was having a conversation about that earlier today.
Yeah.
And because the only thing in life that is certain is life is going to change.
Yeah.
Every day is going to change. No two things are going to be the same. And we're always going to have situations that are going to require us moving and adjusting because life is constantly
Yeah.
changing.
Yeah.
And when we started it, we were fighting the change.
Yes.
And then as we continued through it and we became stronger and we became more connected
Hmm.
and God led us more, we were able to, as you said, lean into the change and learn to navigate changes, navigate the
Yes.
change of life and not fight it so much.
Right.
And I think it started to be easier. I'm not saying life was easier. It's just
The
the
process.
process became easier.
Right, right. Because the beautiful thing is when you realize you don't have to figure it out. You don't have to figure any of it out.
Yeah.
I realized what I had to do was take care of my body, make sure that my body was matching my peace state.
Mm-hmm.
So my literal job was to eat good food, drink water, go exercise, move my body, meditate, pray. Those were my duties. And then just do the next inspired action. Figuring it all out was not my duty.
That's
So
all.
once I realized that, then it became a little more easy. It became a little more simple.
No, I totally get it. How did you set boundaries during this transition period, this transformation period? How did you have boundaries, and how did you or let me ask a better question.
Right.
Did you have healthy boundaries before you started
Oh.
before you started this transformation?
No, I don't think I did. No, I definitely did not. Um, no, that was something I had to learn. I had to learn as I went through the process. And I learned through, having problems in relationships and then not taking care of myself, getting myself worn out or exhausted or not taking care of myself, and then recognizing, okay, I've got to pull back here. I've got to set some boundaries here. And then realizing that because I was a control freak and I wanted to control everybody else. But what I learned, all I can control was my own boundaries, and it gave me a freedom in relationships where I could just take care of myself and let other people be who they were.
True, so true, so true. Let me ask you this. Yeah, drink you some. I'm telling you, these allergies are. It's real.
Golly.
They're after us. But let me ask you this. What is something that you I've kind of jumped ahead, and we're going to go back because I do want to share more of your story, because not only did you get this lawsuit which had such an impact on your life, but as you were saying, you ended up you started going through a divorce during this time period, and
Yes.
that's traumatic all within itself.
Yes.
So I want to kind of talk about how you navigated that. But what did you learn about yourself that you never would have discovered had God not said, "Let me shift your life"?
My goodness. Up until this come apart, I was a support role in the businesses. So we had had several businesses before, and I was always the support person. I wasn't the leader.
Uh-huh.
And when I heard you're the leader, I was like, that doesn't resonate for me. No, I like being behind the scenes and not being the one in the front, and that's not really where I want to be. I'm not comfortable there. So going through this process, that leader in me just like emerged, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is something I didn't even know was in there, and it emerged through that come apart.
Wow. Because again, there has to be a situation
Yes.
to create a revelation of who you are.
Yes. Yes.
And as we were talking, it's uncomfortable,
Yes.
but it's necessary.
Yes. And that's what when we were talking before, we were talking about when we come in, we have this whole identity that we create in our first 30 years of life. Like this is who I am. And there's a shell around that of who we are. But who we were created to be is much bigger than this shell that we've
Yeah.
identified as. And so that shell has to crack in order for the hugeness of who we are to shine forward. And how does that shell? And that was one of the sayings, and I can't remember where I got it from. It was like a Buddhist monk or somebody said, the crack is where the light comes in, or where the light comes out.
Ooh.
And so it was really important for that crack to happen so that the light can shine out, or the light can shine in, however you want to look at that. But really who we are is so much bigger than
It
we ever can
is.
imagine, but we're containing it in this human condition, or what we think we are. And so for that to break, it doesn't break easy.
No, it
And it's
doesn't.
not
And it's
comfortable
not
at all. It's
comfortable.
very
It
uncomfortable.
is. And you know, sometimes God, I've realized sometimes God has to literally remove people out of your life
Yes,
or remove you out of situations because if he doesn't, you won't move
that's correct.
and you'll stay in this little small,
Mm,
as you and you're so right, this identity that we've created, this world that we've created. And even if it's not fulfilling, you still stay because one, because it's comfortable,
absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
he has something so much bigger and so much greater for us. But
Mhm.
unless he comes and he stares the nest, we'll stay there and we'll
Yeah.
never experience the big.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
You never would have made it. You never would have stepped into Heart Profit had you not had he not came and stared your nest.
Right.
I never would have touched next level had
Right.
he not came and stared
Yes.
my nest.
Yes.
So, we fight change, but change is good. And you said that earlier. Change is good.
Yeah.
All change, even uncomfortable change is good
Yeah.
if you learn how to lean into it.
And I think that in learning how to lean into it, really, for me, came over time with trust.
Mhm.
So as something was taken away and I lived through it, and I got to the other
Mhm.
side and it was better, then I was like, oh,
Oh,
okay, well, maybe this is how it works. Then the next thing, got taken away, and then I made it through that and it got better. So then every time the trust grew with each
yeah.
time. And so it wasn't something that just all of a sudden I had this, oh, I love change. Change is good. I still don't like change. I still don't like change. And I still have to go for walks out in nature, and I still have to practice my resiliency, those practices that I have
Nope,
every
you're
day.
absolutely right.
Because you're right, change is constant, and that's what we are constantly going through. But I would rather not go through change. It's uncomfortable. But in hindsight, now with the trust level that I have, I don't fear change anymore.
And it's necessary to evolve.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's what I mean, ultimately, that's what we want to do and become, you know, and I tell God off this often, I don't want to leave this world not fully becoming all that I am. And I want to I want to meet her. I look forward to meeting her.
Yes.
Never do I think that in order to be introduced to her, so you're gonna have to go through some change.
Right? Crack, crack,
I
crack,
wish
crack.
I wish I could do. I'm like you. I wish I could do it without having to have that
Right.
shell crack. But okay, we're done.
Right. And I would say even, I mean, I think it happens less often now because I am more trusting and I am more willing.
Mhm.
But even now, there's certain things that my brain or my mind holds on to that
Mm.
I have to get cracked open. And so even at this stage when I've had so many experiences and I have so much trust, there's still certain things that are locked in that have to be chiseled away.
Oh, so right. We are going to take a quick break, and when we come back, I want to pick up right there because I want to talk about how you built that trust
Mhm.
and how some of the practical things that you've done to establish that trust so that you can move forward in that faith. But we'll pick that up here in just a moment. We'll be right back.
Hi there, I'm Liz Gabriel, owner of Liz Gabriel Interiors LLC, a residential interior design firm in McKinney, Texas that focuses on spaces that are very person-driven, personality-driven. We create novel, intuitive, and authentic spaces. You can check out my work at lizgabrielinteriors.com. You can follow me on Instagram at Liz Gabriel Interiors. I also have a lifestyle brand as an advocate for creatives who experience some mental health symptoms and need help overcoming that in living a creative lifestyle. You can follow that at Liz Gabriel Lifestyle is my handle. I am a singer-songwriter, and you can find my music on any streaming platform under Liz Gabriel Artist. And I think that's it.
We're back, and I am joined by Staci Wright, and we are talking about evolving through change. Stacy, before we went to a break, we were talking about you learning how to trust, and you said you were saying that you've developed more trust that helps you navigate the changes of life now. Can you let's talk about how you learn to trust, how you learn to trust God, how you learn to trust yourself, build that confidence in Him and yourself and the situation, and just the fact that everything would work out okay. Some practical things that you did, if you can think of
Yeah.
any.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There were two pivotal moments where I started building the trust.
Okay.
One was I read a book by Michael Singer called The Surrender Experiment. And
Mm.
he was a business owner, entrepreneur who had lived his life in just this total state of surrender. So he would
Mm.
just go with whatever, he was always spirit led in
Okay.
his entire life. And
Okay.
he had a phenomenal life, and these things just magical things just happened for him. And I thought, okay, I'm like, I've lost everything. So I'm starting over as a middle-aged single mom, $500,000 in debt, by the way. There was like no
We
way I
need to
could
go back and
see
talk about that.
I could there was no way I could see myself digging myself out of that hole. And so I thought, well, surrender sounded like a really good idea at that moment because,
Ain't got nothing else.
yeah, exactly. I kind of joke about that being fortunate that I lost everything because it put me in that place where I could experiment with surrender.
Oh.
Right. And so I said, okay, I'm going to go into this surrender experiment. And then the second thing was I learned about my human design, which is a system of wisdom based on time, place, and date of birth. And it just gives you clues about who you are.
Mhm.
And so I took that information and I said, okay, I'm just going to experiment with that and see what comes from that. So as I went into this experiment and I started leaning into these clues that I had learned about myself, that's when things started happening and miracles started to occur and things started happening really naturally. So one of the things I learned about myself in the human design was that I was a teacher, and I never saw myself as a teacher. But at that moment in time, I was doing a mastermind. I was facilitating a mastermind with me
Uh-huh.
and a couple friends. It was a very informal mastermind, and we were just helping each other with our businesses once a month. And so then the next year, I thought, well, let's do it with 12 women. So I got 12 women in the room, and we started doing that. And that year, we got together once a month, every month. About 6 months into that year, I started getting downloads of information and this huge desire to teach to this group of
Really?
women that I was not a teacher at that moment. And so as I was experimenting, I started saying, okay, well, if I am a teacher, what would it look like if I taught this? And so I started teaching, and people really like enjoyed the information. It helped them. And every month I would get a new download and I would teach it. And so that's how that evolved, and I became a teacher, and I didn't even know, but it literally just happened as I was walking through life.
Wow.
And so that's how I started learning and developing trust, is that as I lean into who I am designed to be in a surrendered state, these magical things started happening. And it just
What?
put me on the path of who I've ended up being today, leading a global movement, which is not who I ever thought I would be. Like that was not in what I thought I was.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
and okay, and because I want to make sure I understand this surrender state. You just whatever you felt and whatever you heard in your spirit, you just went with it.
Yes, it was a yes or no, and it was like human design also says this is how you're designed to make decisions. And so I experimented with that, which was yes or no. So for me, it's a gut feeling, yes or no. And if it's not a yes, let's go,
Ah,
then it's a
it's a
no.
no. Okay.
So that's how I started making my decisions. Like it was a yes, let's go. I'm excited. I'm enthused. It's giving me energy. I would follow that. And if it didn't, I'd say no. And I started setting boundaries. Whenever there was a no, I'd be like, sorry, I can't be the PTO president this year. It's a no. Or if it's a yes, then it was a yes. I really am lit up about that. I'm going to follow that. And I would learn more about myself every time I said yes when it was correct for me. But
Ah,
when I said yes when it was really a no, but I was like, but I'm going to do it anyway, it never
never
worked
worked
out.
out.
Never.
Girl, okay. See, now I'm fully getting you because I call that. I was like, I'm gonna listen to something.
Yeah.
Because there was one point in my life I was like, I keep making all of these decisions and it's not working.
Yeah.
But I always say something told me
Mhm.
to go the other way or to do this or to do
Yes.
that. And I just would not listen. So then I said, you know what? Forget it. I'm just going to start listening to quote unquote
Yes.
something.
Yes.
And the more I listened to something, I almost just like you, and I don't even think it was, I became intentional with listening to something.
Yeah.
I was not consciously trying to figure this thing out.
Yeah.
But I was like, every time I leaned into into quote unquote something,
Yeah.
it worked out for me. And I started noticing when I went the other way, I would
It didn't
always
work
be
out.
like, it just don't work out. And so that's exactly for me, for me, I know now that's the Spirit of God speaking to
Yes.
me.
Yes.
And that's how I begin to really identify and connect and learn to trust.
Yes.
And it's the same thing. I
is.
love that.
Can I give you an example of that?
Yes.
It's a great story, especially for maybe your listeners who might be going through something
Yes.
pretty severe. During the divorce, we were going through the divorce and there was a fight over the house, like who was going to stay in the house. And my attorney was like, you stay in the house with the kids. He needs to go find a place. And he was fighting me on that. And this voice, this gut was saying, go get an apartment. And so against all the advice of all the people in my life, I had decided I was going to follow this voice. And so I went and got a lease on an apartment. So I came home, got the kids, took them and showed them the apartment, and they were excited because it was a new place and there was a pool. They had a pool, and so they were excited. So we did all that. Came home, they couldn't quit talking about it. They were so excited. They were just exuberant about this new place that they were going to live in, this pool, and all of these things. And so then that was it. And we went to bed. The next morning, my husband came to me and he says, "You know what? I'll go get an apartment. Why don't you keep the house?" And so he left and went and got an apartment, and there was never a fight about the house.
Really?
But had I stayed and fought, it would have been a fight. It would have been a big fight. And so it was like those little things. Yeah, I lost money on a deposit, but that was fine. But it's those little things that you think your mind says, no, that's not logical, don't do that. But your gut says, go do that.
Yeah.
It's like experimenting with that taught me to trust that because those little things happened.
I love, and people don't understand, but that's how it happens. It doesn't, it isn't this big grand thing. It's just that
Yes.
simple.
Yeah, yeah, it
And
really is.
and there's so many scriptures, but it's the way that God leads you. And he led the both of us. Oh, it's just giving me chills. He just led us through change, and he will lead you through crisis and shifts just like that. Let's talk about a little bit more about mental health
Yes.
because I think we take for granted the impact that change the crisis or situations have on our mindset. And not just I know we were both talking about our bodies, but it's a shift in thinking, a shift in the way that you see yourself, a shift in the way that you see others, a shift, in the way that you view situations. Can you kind of talk to us a little bit about your mindset and the way that shift begin to the road that it began to take, and some of the things that some of the thoughts that you used to have, and then some of the thoughts that you picked up throughout this journey.
Yeah, I think that's such an important topic to talk about because change brings stress.
Mm-hmm.
Stress changes the way our brain works to
Mhm.
begin with. So when we're under a high level of stress, the smart part of our brain shuts down because your nervous system automatically says, okay, we may have to fight or flight, so we need to conserve our energy. Well, this cortex of ours takes a tremendous amount of energy to run.
Mm-hmm.
That's the part where we have logical, smart decisions. And so when we go into a high level of stress, the energy conserves. So it's pulling, your nervous system's pulling energy in. It takes your cortex offline. So that's the first thing to understand. When you are going through big change,
Yeah.
your smart part of your brain may not be always online. So, and we all know that because when we're reactive, when we go off on somebody we care about, when we yell at somebody we love, we're like, why would I do that? That made no
Because the
sense.
smart part of your brain has shut off.
Yes. That part of your brain that governs your bad behavior shuts down. So I had a lot of bad behavior in my subconscious mind, apparently. I think addiction runs in my family.
Oh,
So there was a
girl.
lot of things that were going on that I was partaking in that was not benefiting me, and I couldn't stop. And I couldn't figure out why.
Was this while you were going through this or
Yes.
before?
Both
Ah.
and. But I never put the two and two together.
Ah.
I just knew that I would, there were times that I couldn't say no to Ben and Jerry's ice cream. And I didn't know why, right? But then when I started learning about stress and the autonomic nervous system and how our body responds to stress, I started recognizing when I had a high level of stress, ice cream was the first thing I thought of, or wine. But I realized early on I couldn't drink a bottle of wine every night because that was not a good role model for my kids, and I didn't want my kids to have that lifestyle. So, but Ben and Jerry's was still acceptable.
Of course.
But then, so I started realizing those things. And so what helped me to not beat myself up, because then I would beat myself up, then I'd go into a shame spiral, and then it would turn into something so much bigger, and it was just a stressful day. There was some big stress that happened. So once I learned that, I was able to assure my nervous system that we're not in trouble and the smart part of my brain can come back online.
Oh, wow.
Then I can make better decisions. And so I learned that my bad decisions didn't necessarily mean I was a bad person.
Yeah.
It meant there was a lot of stress. And when you have chronic stress for long periods of time, that's when those addictions really can take hold. And so I think it's important to talk about the mental aspect of stress and change, because that's a big piece of the puzzle.
No, in what you just described is exactly, dead on how it is. And and you're so right. You start getting into these cycles and you're trying to turn it off, and everything in you is trying to get it right, but you seem to not be able to.
Yes.
You learned this, but what are some things that you automatically start putting into play in your life to pull yourself back so that your brain, so that your sanity brain, that's what I'm gonna call it,
Yeah.
can start
Come back online.
get back online.
Yeah, so I know sleeping always does that for me. So if I can just make it till bedtime, I'll be better in the morning. I know that. So I know that's one thing. Walking out in nature. So if I can get out in nature, I'll do much better. So I would say, okay, I'm not going to have the ice cream until after my walk today. And then I go for a walk, and then I didn't want the ice cream. So I would start doing things like that. One of the things that I learned that I could do right here, right now, I call it the stop, drop, and stroll, which is just to stop what I'm doing, put my attention into my feet and my backside, focus all my energy in my body, and take a deep breath, and then just stroll around the room with my eyes. So what this does is it tells my autonomic nervous system that we're not in danger, because we're breathing, we're feeling ourselves in the seat, and we're looking at everything around us. It's like a reset for the autonomic nervous system. It turns it back on, it turns your smart brain back on. That's a quick way to do that. And I can do that sitting in a meeting. I can do that sitting right here. I can do that anytime, and it brings that part back on.
Really?
But I think the biggest part is recognizing when it happens. And then you can even Google regulating nervous system, like how do I regulate my nervous system? And it'll give you a whole lot of ideas, and you can start experimenting with what works for you. But I think that's a very important, I'm glad you brought that up, because going through change is hard, but not having your smart part of your brain is also hard.
It's really complicated. I'll tell you that one of the things that I learned during this process, one of the things that I do to bring my smart brain back online when I start feeling this anxiety or this high level of stress, and because it was happening. Oh man, because I literally, like you, I was bipolar for a period of time, and I would just be like, am I crazy? Because my emotions and the thoughts they were flip-flopping so much because it was so much change. And the change was so new.
Yes.
And it was hard for me to adjust. But I started, one of the things that I immediately do, and I can do it in any place, I'll start singing.
Okay.
I don't even have to sing out loud, but I'll sing, and it'll calm the whole world back down
Yes.
and bring me into, you're okay.
Yes.
You're okay.
Yes.
Because that's what I have to start. I mean, that's what my mind, and my mind needs to know it, and then it has to start telling it to the rest of my body,
Yes.
you're okay.
My friend does that too.
Really?
Yes. And so now I know when she starts humming, I'm like, ooh, she's stressed about something. Something's going on.
Tanya, one of my really good friends that I work with, she always says, whenever, and now it's known around the office, if I come in and I'm singing, and then everybody's like, okay, something's going on, and she's
Right.
trying to get back into her space. She's trying to get back into her space.
Yes.
We've been having a great conversation. At this time, do you mind if I take a few questions from
not
our
at all.
audience while we continue to talk? I do want to take this opportunity to open up our conversation to our audience. You can drop any of your questions that you may have for Staci in the chat, so that you can join our conversation. Have y'all been enjoying this? Because I really, really, really have. Okay, so I did have one question in here. It says, you mentioned that you didn't have to figure it out. Hold on. You mentioned that you realized you didn't have to, quote, figure it out. You just had to take care of your body. What happened to cause you to have that revelation?
Hmm. That's a great question. I don't know that happened I think that happened over time.
Okay.
But I was in the surrender experiment. Remember, I said I was fortunate because I had lost everything and I was starting from scratch. So I could fully just surrender. And then as things started working out, that's when I realized, oh my gosh, I don't have to figure anything out. So as I was experimenting in this surrendered state, and then things worked out, and I started, opportunities came to me that I didn't even seek out. I recognized, okay, I don't have to figure this out. So I think it was just the actual experiment of surrender
Okay.
that
Okay.
showed me that I didn't have to figure it out.
What does loss mean to you, and how do you define it beyond the traditional view of, for example, loss of love of a loved one, a career, health, etc., like that?
Oh, okay, so what's the question about loss?
What does, quote unquote, loss
Uh-huh.
mean to you,
Okay.
and how do you define it beyond the traditional view of
Okay.
loss?
Okay. So loss to me would be not having something in my life that I valued
Mm.
previously,
Hmm.
and what matters to me now is loss of loved ones. Material things mean nothing
Yeah.
to me anymore. I mean, to a fault now. I mean, I people tell me like you do need to make money to live here. I'm like, but money doesn't mean anything. I've had that. So loss to me is when there's a loss of a connection
Mm.
with another human. It's important to me. That's the biggest loss for me.
How have your priorities, how have you shifted your life to make room and make first thing first?
The priorities.
Yeah.
That was a hard one for me because I think I was a workaholic. I loved work and I put so much emphasis on work that a lot of times connections and relationships were on the back burner. And so, how I've shifted that now is I'm much more intentional with my connections with people, and I value them so much. So, I
Yes.
really work really hard to stay connected, even if it's just a text or a call, or I flying back to California to stay connected with my nieces now that my sister passed, and really making that intention of work is work and work will be there when I get back. There's nothing more important than this connection with this person, whichever one it is that I'm connecting to.
I love it because I agree with you. I
Yeah.
really do.
Yeah.
What are some actionable steps or daily practices that helped you regain control and start rebuilding?
Okay. That's a great question. Meditation, meditation, meditation. Like that was the one thing, we have physical bodies that get dirty, right? We take showers every day
Yeah.
or every other day or however often you shower, but we're showering on a regular basis to clean our bodies. Our spirits and our energy also gets contaminated as we're roaming about the earth. And so if we're not taking spiritual baths or energetic baths, then we can get convoluted. And so for me, that meditation practice, it lifts that veil of dirt. It like gets rid of all that dirt that's hanging out that I picked up along the way. So I would say that is like the most that was like my most valuable practice that I had. Second to that is physical movement, moving every day. Our bodies are what, 80% water overall,
It's
70% water,
70% water.
a lot of water. If you have a body of water that's stagnant, that never moves, what happens to it? It gets really gross. It's moldy and nasty
yeah,
and
and
stinky.
fleas and
Yeah, all kinds of stuff. So that's our body. Our body is 70% water, so we need to move it every day. So moving it every day also helps to clear out stagnant energy. And so for me, it was the energetic bathing of meditation and walking out in nature, which is also like taking a spiritual bath, and taking care of my energy and my energy levels, making sure that I'm around the right people
Yeah.
at the right times. For me, time alone is important. So making sure I had enough time alone, but also not isolating. So I'm not connecting with people, like those balances. But I'd say the biggest two, meditation and movement every day in my body.
I really like that spiritual bathing. So I like the use of that word. How important is self-compassion during the recovery process, and how can someone practice it?
Gosh, that absolute. Okay. 20 years ago, I'm 53 now. 20 years ago, I heard this woman speak. She was in a podcast, or it wasn't a podcast, it was a video, because back then they didn't have a podcast. It was a video. I was watching this video, and she was saying she was an 87-year-old woman who exuded light and love. Like she was just that person. And she had spent her whole life coaching people and helping people. And she said, I used to think there was a different answer for different problems. So if somebody was having relationship issues, I would give them this advice. And if somebody was having career issues, I'd give them this advice. And then if somebody was having issues with their children, I would give them this advice. She goes, but the longer I do this, the more I realize there's one answer for every issue you have. And at that point, I was dealing with a whole lot of stuff with addictions and different aspects of relationship issues. So I'm sitting on the edge of my seat. I'm like, okay, I can do one thing. Tell me what that one thing is, because I can do one thing. And she said that one thing is to learn to love yourself so deeply. If you do that, everything else takes care of itself. And so from then on, and she wrote the 12 Commandments of Learning to Love Yourself. It was Louise Hay.
Oh,
and so
Tanya is about to have a whole fit right now.
Oh, yeah. I Googled the 12 Commandments. I printed them out, and I put them up on my mirror. I put them up on my treadmill. I put them up everywhere I was at. And I just committed to that. I committed to that one thing because I believed her. And that's the evolution of it was I couldn't have gone through what I went through with the grace that I did had I not learned to love myself. So I think that's key.
Oh,
Absolute
I
key.
just love that.
Yeah.
That is beautiful, and I love Louise Hayes.
Okay,
Me and
yes.
Tanya, we love us some Louise Hayes.
She's amazing. She was amazing.
Okay. After experiencing loss, how can someone overcome self-doubt and fear about moving forward? They hitting you with some good questions.
Yeah, they got some great questions. I would say, again, have a meditation practice. Try to see yourself through God's eyes, see yourself the way God sees you, see yourself the way other people see you, and maybe even ask other people how they see you, because we're the hardest on ourselves. And especially when we're going through something that causes so much loss, we tend to blame or I tend to internalize that. And I did something wrong. It's always my fault. And I'm always beating myself up. So learning to have grace and forgive myself and just be, and then trying to see myself through other people's eyes, and especially God's, I think is really key.
Like that. Okay, so this is our last question.
Okay.
Do you have any techniques or strategies to help people stay motivated despite setbacks?
Yes. I would say for me, when I found the passion that I had, when I just determined that intention that I had of making a positive impact in the world with power and sustainability. And it lit me up. Like it lit me up to the point of no matter how many setbacks I had, I was like, I'm still going. I'm still going. There was no need for motivation at that point. There was this internal push. So I would say find what that is for you that turns you on, that turns on your motor, and you'll never have a need for external motivation.
Oh, that is so good.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. Good. Okay, I'm gonna ask this last question because this is a really good question. How can someone who feels lost after a setback discover or reconnect with their sense of purpose?
Mm. Again, I go back to meditation, like really clearing out the clutter because there's so much, I call it the monkey mind. Our monkey mind is just chattering all the time and it keeps us disconnected from our true purpose. And so if we can learn to discipline that part of our being, that part of our mind, we can actually feel into our purpose. Our purpose is there.
Yeah.
It's the monkey mind that's like chattering us and keeping us from seeing it. Because the monkey mind, it doesn't it sees that as its foe, right? Because once you stand in your purpose and you're standing in your power, you don't need this little monkey mind anymore.
Yeah.
So when you can calm the monkey mind, then you can tap into your purpose really relatively easy. But it's hard, it's not easy to calm. I'm not trying to make light of calming the monkey mind because that is a very hard thing to do. But it's just like anything with exercise, with building muscle, it's just like the same thing. You just do it a little bit every day and it grows with time.
See, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We've been going for an hour, believe it
My
or not.
goodness, wow.
This has just been absolutely amazing.
It always is when we're together.
It does. Before we get out of here, I do want to, and I know you talked about it at the beginning of the show, but I do want you to talk just real quick a little bit about the Heart Prophet and how someone can connect with you and connect with the work that you're doing at the Heart Prophet.
Yeah, actually, I would say just connect with me on my social media, and that's where pretty much everything gets funneled through. I do have some personal development stuff that I'm working on, as well as the human design stuff. So if you're interested in finding out anything about that, I'd say connect with my social media. And so on Facebook, it's Staci Renee Wright. And then on Instagram, I believe it's Staci Renee CEO. Same with LinkedIn and
Okay, cool. And I'm going to put that into the chats
perfect.
in our replay. Before we get out of here, is there anything that God has placed on your heart, if He's given you anything, just to say to our audience or someone who's in the middle of a crisis and is in the process of change?
Yes.
Just whatever God has given you to speak to them and encourage their hearts.
Yeah, He did give me something today for that purpose. And it's that the whole world is in chaos right now. The whole world is going through a massive shift. And each one of us is bringing a piece of that change. And so we're each having to go through it ourselves as well as the whole. And what God told me today was that it's our resiliency that we have to work on. That is all we have to work on, is staying centered, staying grounded, staying in touch with that higher self that lives within us, and work on our resiliency stuff, which is, like I said, whatever it is for you that gets your autonomic nervous system calmed down. That's what we have to do. We have to do that every single day. We have to be very disciplined about that. We don't have to figure out what to do during the change. We don't have to figure out how it's all going to work out. We have to focus on us, on our insides, and making sure we're okay. And the rest is going to work out. But we do need people to love themselves and bring that love to the surface and to calm their bodies so that they can be resilient, because change is still coming and it's going to get worse before it gets better.
Great. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. I
Thank
appreciate you.
you.
I mean, I just love you,
I
and
love
I've
you.
enjoyed this conversation. Every situation creates an opportunity for a revelation. And this is our season for change. And I know that change can be scary. I know that it's frightening. But as Staci was saying on tonight, lean into it, because all change is not bad change. And God has something bigger and greater for you as He moves you from one level to the next. I want to let you know that I love you. I thank you for watching. Go be great.